So tonight we're going to discuss Git and GitHub, really targeting the beginner, things that are going to be most commonly used. So I really want to target the commands. I think there's probably 6 or 7 commands, Git commands, to use that are going to really do you well and cover probably 95% of your interactions with version control that uses the Git protocol. So yes, I will get this video up on get the recorded video up on the app. So don't worry about that. I've started recording. So first, I want to just do a quick overview of what Git is. And Git is a protocol. So it's a way that we can track changes in computer files, and then we can coordinate that work among multiple people. And I guess protocol, also called a version control system. You'll see in a lot of code editors and things, you'll see VCS. And Git isn't the only type of version control system. So there are others out there. If you're in, or if you end up in a job at some point in time that is deep into the .NET ecosystem, there's something called TFS, which is Team Foundation Server, which is a really popular one out there that I've heard of and I know people that work with. And then there's Git and sites like GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket are all using this Git protocol version control system. So the protocol is where, and we'll see it, like HTTP : is a protocol. And you'll see Git addresses that are Git : and that's just telling our computers what to use to get and communicate that information at those addresses that we give to Git. So Git is something that you need to have on your computer to use it. Depending on what code editor you use, it might be integrated. I can't say that I use a ton of integrated tools. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. There's a bunch of GUI tools. SourceTree is a very popular one for Windows and Mac, made by Atlassian. Also, there's Git Kraken. So, and using a GUI tool and not using the command line doesn't make you any less of a Git user. I know a ton of people who are working developers who never use the command line to do their Git. So if that's what fancies you and how it works well for you, go ahead and find a tool you like and use it. But we're going to go over some command line things this evening. That's what I'm most comfortable with. But first, I know this is a beginner's class or tagged a beginner's class, so I want to see how comfortable everybody here is with Git and GitHub. So I went to a meetup, or actually I helped host a meetup, and we had a speaker and he had a background in education, and he did this thing called Fist to 5, which doesn't really work in this context because we're not all video chatting and I can't see everybody. So fist would be 0. And the idea is you hold it up in front of your chest and you do Fist to 5, and you can look around the classroom real quick and get a quick overview of where people are at. So let's just do 0 to 5 into the chat, with 0 being you might have heard the word Git, but that's all that you know. And 1 being you've done everything on Learn. You've entered the Git and GitHub part on Learn. 2 being you've done some manual pull requests and cloning. Yeah, I think that's good, because being tagged a beginner's class, I don't really expect anybody to be, doing Git bisects and Git diff logs and things like that. So cool. 0, 1, 1.5, 2. Awesome. That's exactly what I was expecting, and exactly who this lecture and lesson is directed towards. I highly suggest, if you're on Learn, you should have a GitHub username and login. So I highly suggest you follow along as we do some of these steps. And in the end, open up a pull request to the repo that I'll create, because I want to go through the whole process and see how the entire thing works. So first, we'll concentrate on GitHub. GitHub is the biggest open source tool out there to use. So the typical workflow, and people do it two different ways, but my typical workflow is finding something that's on GitHub, or if I want to start a project, I can get to my right Firefox window. And we'll look at branching here in a little bit and what it is and how that workflow works. Let's get to GitHub. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And start a new repository. So we'll hit our drop down, do new repository. And you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to say GitHub Basics lecture. You might not have this private option if I have it somehow through some education pack that I connected. Otherwise, it's a paid feature, I think. But everything can be public, no problem. I'm not going to worry about description or initializing. I'm just going to create it. Now, initializing is going to let you immediately clone this repository to your computer. However, I want to show some more of these steps. And you can add a license automatically. When you're doing your projects, I suggest you just add a license. It makes it very simple to include that license for your project. You can add a git ignore. You can pick, some options in here. There's great tools out there. If I remember right, gitignore.io. It's great for generating those. We'll step into what a git ignore is towards the end. But we'll just create this repository for now. Now, GitHub's going to walk us through these steps, and I still copy and paste these all the time. If you haven't set up SSH, don't worry, that's fine. That's probably a little bit past where we're going in this lab, but you can Google it, and GitHub has some step-by-step instructions for setting up SSH. SSH is nice because you'll see if you're not using it, whenever you do a command that interacts with a remote repository with your code on GitHub, then you're going to have to enter your username and password every single time. And that becomes cumbersome. So SSH is going to authenticate you pretty much, or your machine that you're on at that moment in time, with GitHub until you explicitly revoke it through your account. So I'm going to go through and do something along these lines. To create a new repository on the command line. And a repository, shortened as repo, is just a project, a collection of code, whatever you might want to call it, but it's going to be what we're in right now. So this GitHub Basics lecture, that is going to be called a repository. So let's get in here, and I just have this README, and it's in Markdown, and we're in this folder, GitHub Basics. I try and keep projects, they're different names. I try and keep projects and folders the same name, or repos and folders the same name, just for my own sanity. When I'm looking through my file tree, I would know, let's just rename this, GitHub Basics, what do we call this? Lecture. Okay, so this is the lecture doc. So now I'm going to walk through these steps. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. I'll squash this way. Perfect. Oh, missing a little bit, but that's fine. So this echo here, it's telling you, and that's to create a README. and we already have this README that we've created. Always make sure to save. I have autosave enabled, so I'm not going to enable it. You can practice it in your sandbox, yes. I believe so. It should have everything that you need in there. Yeah, it should, thinking about it. So the first thing we need to do with anything that's going to be on Git is we have to initialize it. And the command we use is git init. It's going to say initialize repository in, and we see this folder that it creates, this .git folder. Now, we're not going to see this, at least not in my view, because these dot folders are supposed to be hidden. And this is where Git does all its magic. So don't mess with anything in this folder. You could really mess some things up. That's where I honestly have never been in that folder or touched it. I've looked in it a few times just out of curiosity, but that's where Git's going to keep all of the commit logs, all of the diffs, all the things that it does to make it Git. I honestly don't know exactly the technical things that are going on under the hood inside that folder, but I know that I don't want to touch it, and I highly suggest you don't touch it either. The next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to add some files. So once you have git init, a handy command is git status. And git status is always going to give you info and tell you the current state of where your repository is on your local computer. So far, we haven't done anything to connect the server to our computer. I'm going to say on branch master, no commits yet, untracked files. And it typically will tell us what our next step needs to be to move forward. Use git add file to include in what will be committed. Nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. Use git add to track. So we have to tell Git explicitly what files we want to track and eventually put up onto the Git server. So we're going to do git add. A shortcut is add period. That will add all the files. If you were, just wanting to update one file, you could type that file out and it will add it. You could type that out with a path. You could add files one by one. I typically find that I'm doing git add period, short, also known as git add all. And that's because I typically work on one file at a time and one piece of the code or one feature or one specific thing. So I add, and now if we do git status, we see some of the same things. On branch master, no commits yet, changes to be committed. And it says use git remove -- cached file to unstage. So that would be if we wanted to go back and unadd this file. But now we want to commit. So commit is, if we run git init in the current folder, can we do git add of a file in a parent folder? No. So it's going to be scoped to wherever the git init is. So git init is going to make that the top level of your Git repository. So all the children you can add, but you can't go backwards and up the tree. Is everybody keeping up with this so far? Thanks for asking questions. Questions are good. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Throw them in the chat like has been happening, or unmute yourself. I love hearing voices besides mine, and we can chat about things. But I want to make sure you're getting this, because Git is going to become integral in your life as a developer. So getting these basic commands down is going to put you on a really solid path moving forward. So a commit is going to be marking the state of the code at a point in time. So we're going to type git commit -m, and that is a flag to add a message. And the majority of commits are one line. And if I remember correctly, I think I wrote this down, maybe not. Yes, they should be less than or equal to 72 characters. Now, I don't find that I've ever gone over that, and I don't find that I typically even count that, because the message, you want to keep it short and to the point. So, you know, added README title. And we're going to commit that. So we see added README title, one file change, one insertion, create mode, tells you the name of the file. And now that commit is there. If we hit git status, nothing to commit, working tree clean. Working tree means, you know, there's nothing sitting out there that hasn't been committed and added to the project yet. And now we've marked that point in time. So now that we've committed something, we've done an add, we've done a commit, we're going to run this command. This command is going to connect our local code to GitHub. If I can get this to scroll back over. Okay. And what we're doing here is we have Git, and then we're saying remote. So we're saying someplace other than our local computer, we want to add. And by default, origin is what is used. So origin is going to be like the root, so to speak. You can have multiple remotes if you want, but typically there's just one in most projects. And origin is the default name. And then we have a web address, you know, git protocol at github.com. Then we have Git Saga, which is me, and then the URL to the name of the repo.git. And we run that, it's added. Now, it didn't look like anything changed, but now if we look at git remote, and we put a -v for verbose, we'll see we have this remote. We have an origin. It has two options, fetch and push. So that means we can push stuff up to the server, as well as fetch and get stuff from the server. So we've added it. Now we want to push it. So we're going to explicitly tell it.
Sorry, is fetch and pull the same thing?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes. I think the protocol calls it fetch, but the command is pull.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. It would be too simple if it was exactly the same words, right?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
So now we're going to push and explicitly push to the origin our what's called master. That's going to do its thing. New branch. And now when we refresh, we see our README up here. And if we look, we have one commit. I can make this a little bit smaller now. And we see the commit, added README title, and everything that goes along with that. Oh, that went to the wrong place. Wrong screen when it maximized. And everything that comes along with that. And commits are kept track of with these unique identifiers. So you can use this 7 digits to specifically target a commit. However, it actually is a much larger number. If we click it, we should see, here's the full commit hash. So I honestly don't know how GitHub, I guess 7 digits is unique enough knowing the repo, and then this long hash is completely unique. I'm not sure exactly how that technology works under the hood, but it's represented by 7, but it's much longer in reality. Cool. So that's the general gist of when we have our own code and we want to push. So now if we wanted to make changes, let's keep writing in here. Here is a subheading. I don't know if I've ever written that word. There's supposed to be a dash there. That's fine. So we can do our git status. And we'll see there's a modified file. We have changes not staged for commit. So we'll add them. And we see there's 2 options here. Use git add and or git commit -a. So if you have a modified file, not a completely new file, you can shortcut around the git add. So before we did git add explicitly, and then we did git commit, and now we can do git commit -a, and we add the second modifier on there, m for message, and that a is saying to add the modified files. So if there's a bunch of them, it's going to do all of them at once. So you're not going to be able to pick and choose. You have to do that explicitly through add. We'll say added a sub heading. That's going to take care of both of those commands for us. And if we do git status now, I guess I can make this bigger. We'll see it's starting to tell us information about what we have on the server. Your branch is ahead of origin master by 1 commit. So the origin remote master branch by 1 commit. Use git push to publish your local commits. It's telling me that our copy. So let's push, get that up there. We can refresh this. There's more stuff in our README. So now let's say you're working on a project with somebody else. You're pair programming on the jQuery tic-tac-toe project or something. And your partner has added some code to a repository and you're wanting to get it. Or let's see what Git will tell you. So there is a way to just edit markdown files at least. Can't remember if you can do edits on code. I think you can actually. It just probably wouldn't be the easiest to work in this editor. So I'm just going to put something in here. And the commit. Now, you'll see that there's a title and an optional extended description here. You can add this extended description in the command line as well. However, like I said, the large majority of commits are just this title. So I'm not going to go into that other option of the commit unless we get to a point of stopping and there's time left and people really want to see that. But it is there. So just want you to know that there is a way to have more. And I've even read some articles about, what makes a quote unquote good commit message. And it's like the title should be this and the description should be a paragraph long. And I don't know that a lot of people follow that, but it might be something that if you fall into an organization where that is policy or that's how the code is written and documented, that might be there. So knowing that's there is good to know. So we'll commit it.
I have a quick question.
Yes, go right ahead.
Why did we not write git push -u origin master this time and simply git push did it?
So the first time we had to explicitly make that connection. So that's not going to help. Let's see, git push help. So our -u is a shortcut for setting what our upstream is. So that's going to be we can, like I said, we can add multiple remotes. So we are going to first add the remote, and then we're going to explicitly connect what we consider our upstream. And our upstream is going to allow us to just push like we did. It's going to say, okay, by default, this is where we're going. This is our upstream for pulling and pushing.
So if I were to write some code which was now to be pushed onto a different repository, then I would set up that upstream first and then push.
Yes. And Git won't let you push until you set that up too. It's going to error with like, well, right now we got an error that I was going to show. So our remote repository has some stuff here, some more text that our local doesn't have. So Git will fail, and it will tell you exactly what you need to do too. So if we had tried to, oh, not here. Let's see. CD git. Git on it. Git remote. Add. Origin. So we just did git push. It's telling us that this doesn't match anything, that it's not connected. The reference isn't there. So that's what setting the upstream did. It connected for us. A good question, because I honestly never really think about the intricacies of all those steps because GitHub gives them to us. And it's always just like copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. But really you have to connect that upstream for your pulls and pushes. So we go back to the other folder, GitHub Basics lecture. Does that make sense? Did I explain that clear enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, let's get some of this out the way. If we do a few things, if we do git status, we get the message your branch is behind origin master by 1 commit and can be fast forwarded. Git pull to update your local branch. And we'd get the same if we tried to do git push. We get an error that it's rejected. Failed to put some references. Updates because the tip of your current branch is behind its remote counterpart. Integrate the remote changes, e.g. git pull, before pushing again. And it even has this helpful see the note about fast forwards and git push -- help for details. So this is telling us to use git pull to update our local branch. So we do git pull. We see 1 file change, 2 insertions, meaning lines. So there was a new line in this text, and our text shows up here. And we have a copy of what is on the server. So if we do git status, we see your branch is up to date, nothing to commit, working tree clean. Now let's look at the workflow that we would do if we were working on a lab on Learn. Now that we've seen some of the base commands in Git. So let me find, I guess I can find anything, but I'll go to the curriculum. I'm just going to pick one of these. TTT10 current player. Actually, I think I have that down already. I know I don't have this. because I don't even know. This is Python. Who knew? So the first thing that you do is you want to find what you're going to clone. So we're on learn. Let's see. What's delaying? Transfer data from maps. What are we getting from maps? There we go. So I guess I've already forked this. Let's go to the next one. Okay. This is the lesson, but that's fine. There should be a lab in here somewhere that I haven't done. Okay. So first we'll do GitHub. So this will take us to the curriculum copy of, or the student's copy of the lab. The curriculum is this learn-code-curriculum is just an upstream copy that's used for, I don't know exactly how the flow works, but this is, you're going to get to your curriculum copy. And the first thing we'll need to do is fork. So we'll hit fork. And this is going to tell us to fork. You will most likely only have one option here, and it'll be yourself. So I don't even think it'll ask you here. But I have to click my personal. Those are all what are called organizations. And you can be granted access to organizations and then do stuff within them. To the repository is owned, quote unquote, by an organization. So now we have a copy on our GitHub account. So we see it's my name. It has the name of the repository, the lab. It tells us where it came from, where it was forked from. So now we want to get this lab onto our computer, into our IDE, wherever it may be. So we need to do clone or download. To clone or download, there's HTTPS or SSH. It'll stay on whatever one you pick as long as you want. There's also download zip, where all this comes down in a zip file. However, this is the preferred way. Copy to clipboard is going to give us this link. And then if we go into our environment, I'm going to go up one level, and we do git clone. Actually, I want to clear this for a second. Git clone, and then we want that URL. We hit enter. We see cloning into JS principal scope chain code along v000. So the name of the repository right here, right here, there we go, is what Git is going to create a folder of and put all the code inside there. So if we look at my list of folders now, we see this JS principal scope chain code along v000, and that wasn't there before. So we can move into that folder. And since we cloned it down, it's already initialized, it's already connected. If we do git status, we'll get info. If we do git remote -v, we see you already have an origin set up for us. If we, let me open it up. JS principal scope. Just open the README. If we make changes, let's see. Let's make this, header. We can do a git status. modified so we can use our commit -a with a message. Say made title into a header. If we do git push, it's all connected and wired up for us. And if we look at our local copy, we'll see this changed. So that would be, you know, we download, we clone the lab down, we write our code, we get our test to pass. Okay, now we're ready to submit. I guess I should have left this open. And Learn will update as we do these things. Now, to get this local test lite to work, you have to use the Learn gem. So what's happening is when you do Learn open, it's just doing these steps for you. It's forking the repository and cloning it down and running the install step for you. So before we even could write and run the tests here, since this is a JavaScript lab, we would need to do npm install if you're not on JavaScript yet, which I don't believe you would be. But if you are, then you know that. If you're in the Ruby section, then bundle would be the equivalent in the curriculum to npm install, just to get everything wired up. But to run the tests and connect, you're going to need to run Learn gem sets. Hopefully you never mess up your gem sets and have to do that every single time. I don't know how to fix it. What was I saying? Learn. So we see it's running npm install as part of the process of Learn. And it's giving an error. But to get this light right here to light up, you have to use Learn. So there are other commands where you can run tests. If you're in the Ruby curriculum, rspec runs tests. We know we have seen that, or not in this lab, but that is what Learn is doing under the hood. Learn is just taking care of a lot of these steps for us automatically. But Learn connects to a server that verifies these things and connects to the website and makes it happen to make this light up. Now, for the pull request part, once you have your code and it's all done and your tests are passing and you've pushed it up, it'll be sitting here and let's see, refresh. We see we have this branch is one commit ahead of Learn Co students master. So that means we have code that this forked from doesn't. And that's where our pull request comes in. And we have this link right here, pull request. We also have a compare. We can click compare and see, this is showing us comparing changes. It's comparing two things. So we have Learn Co students / JS principal scope, and we have my copy. Yeah, we're comparing, and it's showing the changes that we've made. So in this one, it's just this one hash mark. So the pull request comes with clicking pull request. And then for the labs, all we need to do is click create pull request, or there'll be another step after this. Create pull request, and it's going to ask you for some info. And the default, whatever's in here, should be fine. When you use the Learn gem and you do Learn submit, it's doing this whole process for you as well. And I believe the commits and Learn are just done. And you create pull request. That opens up a pull request. Now it has automatically moved us to the Learn Co students version. We see this pull request, and it's open now. Now, in the workflow of labs, pull requests will never be merged in. So you're never going to see the merges in the curriculum. If you do feel like or ever want to contribute and make a pull request that has code changes, that should be to a different copy, the upstream copy, and you can ask about that and find that info. That's kind of outside the scope of this. But then you would see stuff getting merged in. And that would be the whole process for submitting a lab manually. I don't know. Yeah. So we see the pull request light lit up. And I honestly don't know how they connected at all. Like, I've explained how this works with the site to engineers I know, and they're like, that's really neat. However, you know, they're connecting it all and it all works and it all reflects right here. But yeah, so that is the steps that we would go through to manually submit a lab, to clone a lab and submit it. How's everybody feeling? Comfortable?
Yeah, feeling a lot better.
Okay.
There's something I needed to ask. I'm quite in the beginning only of the course, and till now I have been mostly using the Open IDE on the browser itself. Mm-hmm. And the learn submit pretty much does everything that you have told without me having to do all that.
Yes.
Do you advise that we continue like that, or should I start, following this entire downloading on my local machine and then pushing it on to the GitHub as a matter of practice? Yeah.
So the, I guess, official quote unquote suggestion is to stick with the IDE through the, I believe, Sinatra project. And after that, make the change. If you feel comfortable at some point before that point, there's no restrictions on that. However, we don't want anybody to have to worry about tooling. We want people to worry about learning. So these extra steps, I can tell you that I completely understood this entire process and set up, my local development environment as I was going through the curriculum. And I still use Learn Open and Learn Submit because it was a time saver. So really having the knowledge and understanding what's going on underneath it is all that's I think the important part. Doing the actual steps over and over and over and over and over again is really just monotonous in the context of what is happening throughout the curriculum, because the steps are very defined and they're pretty much exactly the same for everything except the projects. And you will get exposure to the full Git process in the projects because you can't use the Learn gem in the projects. So I would say stick with what you're doing right now and don't worry about it. It's awesome that you're here learning about these things in a little bit more depth, but really it's just fine what you're doing right now.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. So let's see. We got about 10 more minutes. So I'll spend a few minutes in showing the branch and what that is and how to do those and where it would be used. You're probably not going to see it at all in the curriculum, but it is a very common thing when you get into teams working together in software development. So Git has this workflow. I guess this graphic works well. I just found it online. So the sheep, I don't know. They put that there. It's probably their logo, whoever this is. So the workflow is there's the master, which is typically where, all the code that is working that we know is right is living. And we don't want to just write new code to master, because if master breaks, that's not going to be good. And we're going to have to fix it. And well, if anything breaks, we're going to need to fix it. But we want to keep master pure to an extent. So the workflow is to have branches. And this is pretty much what a branch looks like, quote unquote. So we create a branch, we make some changes, and then we submit a pull request. So we saw the pull request to a parent that we had forked from, but you can do a pull request within a repository. Then in that pull request, there might be some changes proposed and some more commits, and finally it'll be merged in. And this showing that there can be multiple branches and commits and merges going on at the same time. So like, I can show a good example. If there's still any. Resli / Resli. Should be a bunch of branches here. So here, this is a company I used to work for, and here's branches. So there's bugs, there's chores, there's feature builds, there's a master, and there's a production. So all these are different branches. 14 branches right now. So ultimately, we want to use those branches so we're not worrying and messing with our code. There's a couple different ways to create branches. Let's get back to here. You can create a new branch on GitHub, find or create a branch. So in that long list, I could have typed chore, it would have filtered it, or we see we can create a branch here. But typically, you're going to be on your local computer. Let's see if we're, that's fine. Git add, git commit, am, ran install. Okay, everything working tree clean. We'll push just to get everything in sync. Typically, you'll be on your local computer like, oh, I want to work on a new feature. I want to add something. So the way you create a branch locally is going to be git branch and whatever you want to call your branch. New feature. To see all your branches, to see all your local branches, you'll just type git branch. Oh, that wasn't branch. Git branch. It's going to highlight the one that you're on with this star and highlighting, and then tell you the other one. To switch branches, you'll type git checkout, and then the name of the new branch. Say new feature. And then let's say I want this to be Ruby. And we'll do a status again. Okay. Commit. Change to Ruby. Header. Now, up until this point, even when we refresh, we still only have this one branch because it's living on our local machine. So if we'll do git push, and we'll see new branch, new feature to new feature. Now, it even pops up without us having to refresh. You recently pushed branches, new feature. So now we have another branch that we can, I guess we need to refresh here, can look at. So now we're working on our code without touching master. And to follow our workflow, we can make all our changes. We've made one, good enough for our example. We would do a compare and pull request. And it's going to look the same like we did before. And do create pull request. And oh, I had a commit that I hadn't pushed, it looks like. So it was on that branch. So now this is where a lot of companies do code reviews. So you'll have somebody else who'll come in and look at your code and it might sound very scary that somebody's going to be critiquing you, but I don't know that I can do a review on my own thing to give an example, but do a review. So I might say, hey, this isn't a Ruby lab, and put a comment on it. And discussion can go back and forth, and that's what's being highlighted here. And someone might say, hey, this is not a Ruby lab, your boss or another developer, and you go, oh, okay. And we come back and we say, oh, we need to change this back. This is supposed to be, JavaScript. JS rocks. And we need to commit that. Change back to JS and push that. And we'll see our new commit shows up, and it keeps our things in chronological order. Eventually, when we get it to a point that is good and we think is going to be working right, it's passed tests if we have automated testing and such, we'll go ahead and merge it. Oh, I'm on this. That's why the pull request did that. Let's go back to our code, my code. New feature. New pull request. So we want to choose our master. So we're saying new feature to master. Create pull request. Has just the 2 commits that are on this branch. It's making more sense now. Don't know how I missed that before. And when we're confident that it's good, it'll get merged. You do merge pull request. That's going to take our code that we have, put it into our master. And now when we look at master, we'll see our JS rocks on here. That's the kind of the overview of the workflow. One last thing, as you work, you're going to accumulate a lot of branches. So check out master. I really try and do this as I go and delete the branches that have been merged. So git branch -d, new feature, I believe we called it. I don't know why this happens sometimes. It says it is not fully merged, yet like it's not up here. I mean, I guess because the branch is still here and it hasn't been deleted. Oh, it's because there's a pull request open to here from that branch. But I find sometimes I just need to do git branch -d. That's only dealing with the local copy. So it didn't delete anything on the server, but that updates that. Any questions? I know we've been through a lot, but hopefully some of the repetition has helped. And like I said, the branches thing, you won't get into until you're in the workforce doing development. And then also it's going to be defined. Like we had chores and features and we had a very defined structure. So it wasn't really hard to get up to speed on because it was very structured, to keep things in order. And all those things had numbers from issues and such, and there was a process. But yeah, any questions that I can answer at this point in time?
I want to ask something. Although it's pretty rhetorical, but if I were to by mistake do a git push origin master in my branch, it will raise an error, right? It will not allow me to do that.
Yeah, you won't be able to push to a different branch.
or to the master?
So if you're on master, it will let you push to it.
But if I have done a checkout and I'm on a different branch and I've made some changes, then I cannot just push to the master unless I do a pull request.
You won't be able to push to master.
Even by mistake.
Well, you can. If you are on master and you have write access, it's going to let you push to it if that's the branch you're on. So it's really just all depends on your Git branch. If you're on master, it's going to let you push to it. Or am I not understanding your question?
Like we were in the new feature branch, and whatever changes I made to the code, we did when we did git push, it pushed it to the branch new feature. Now, if I had set up my upstream by saying git push -u origin master, then would it push it to the master by mistake, or it will raise an error saying that you are on the new feature branch, so you cannot upload to the master branch?
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying, so the upstream is going to be for the whole project. So that's not going to be branch dependent. So
Okay.
I don't know that I've ever explicitly stated which branch to push to once I've set up the upstream. Like once I've connected that the first time, I just do git push, and that's pushing to the branch that you're working in and only to that branch. So I don't know that I've ever even tried that to find out what would happen.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions I can answer?